morning, everybody, or good afternoon, wherever you are, wherever you're joining my show. Thanks for joining the podcast. Really excited to talk about some other stuff here. I usually am trying to get a guest on these shows. This episode, I do not have a guest, but I do have a couple of topics I want to talk about. So I figured let me get through it, talk through them, and we'll see where it goes from there. First topic today. What I'm going to be talking about is the headlines that I've been reading about the Great Resignation, I guess a play on the Great Recession or depression, those things, of 2021, where people are shifting and leaving jobs and I guess reevaluating things. And full disclosure, I'm actually sort of one of those people. I did a reevaluation of what I want to do and what I want to be and what I want to leave as a mark on this world. If I leave the world a better place than when I came here. And that's a big deal for me. It was sort of a lesson that we learned growing up. I'm a 70s and 80s kid, and that was one of the things. I remember that being a big push for us. What was important, and what was the good you can do. Wasn't necessarily the money. We did have those chats as well, but it was about the good you can do. And if you made money doing it, it's fine. But it really was about the good you can do. So let's see where we can start off on some of this stuff here. So the Great Resignation. You have a large, at least they're saying a large segment of the workforce is just resigning with no out, no thought about where it's going next, and all that. And I just don't. I don't know if everyone's really thinking about it all the way through. I think people are seeing it as, hey, some people are just pissy or they're pampered, and they're only looking at it from one point of view. And there's always a factor. There's a reaction to every action. And I think one of the biggest things I can see, a reaction, is that people are leaving because they're not feeling they have value or worth where they are. If you're valued at a job, you'll always stay. If you show the value that you bring, and the people above you see that and they encourage it and they talk about it and they appreciate it, that's a nice dialogue. Everything's a dialogue. Let's see the way the world is. Everything's a dialogue. Otherwise we're all living through monologues and no one wants that. But everything's a healthy dialogue, and people want to know that they're cared for, and people want to know that you care for them, and I think that's a big push with this, and especially in 2020, where even if you brought value to the table, I don't know if you got an equal discussion back. I don't think there was an investment in that dialogue back with companies. So I worked in webcasting. That was been there for 20 odd years, and I saw this massive pivot go to remote and go to these virtual meetings. Now that's a big deal. That's a very big deal, the way it shifted very quickly within a week or two, where offices were closed, huge offices of huge companies were closing. Thousands of people working remote. Can't even tell you how the setups were failing left and right. People have the concept of how to work, how to set up a little webcam, how to have a decent mic. They were going over the top or just totally breaking things, never really understanding the flow of internet, of what's required for a webcast. So it's kind of interesting. Actually, I think my camera's a little. Speaking of that, let's see if I can straighten this out. There we go. I think that's level-ish. That's level-ish. That's a little off. There we go. See what you do? Oh, fix. There we go. That's better. It's a little better. I think camera skews here a little bit. That's odd. But no, I'm pretty straight. All right, cool. So yeah. See, one of those little things. Who's going to even think about that? Who's going to think about what's behind him, what's not behind him, and how the cameras react, different cameras react. So a lot of these cameras are fisheyes to an extent. So you have this great, especially when you're close to something or further away, it distorts towards the edges and things move. And a lot of people didn't think about that. So webcasts were impacted. Meetings were impacted. People had to relearn how to do things. People had to learn how to speak to a camera constantly and have an intimate conversation with colleagues through a camera. And not in the same room, and not do the side jokes or have that energy that goes back and forth in a live room. So people did this huge pivot. I knew people, with my company and with partners and with clients, they were working multiple hours, over, what they should have been. They were working 60, 80 hours sometimes a week to get these events going across There was just a huge push. We had one client that went from the average of a busy month being 70 events to being 700 events. And we did it successfully. That was a good. I was very proud of that. It was how we were able to pivot that and bring a huge level of support to a client. And I don't know if I ever really got, I don't want to say recognition. I don't want a blue ribbon. I'm not one of those people. I don't care. But money was made. Money was made. So if you're gonna make $20, I want that tip. That's just what it comes down to. I need a part of that. I can't watch somebody else go, man, I love the way we made money, and then walking off, and then you're still making that same budget. And I think that's some of the big problem. That's a huge problem, I think, with people, how they value themselves and how they perceive they're being valued by other people. And that's where the resignation comes in, where people are just fed up with dealing with it and thinking, well, maybe for X amount, I can just live somewhere else. I can work somewhere else. And if you think about the math of what it costs to live, if you have a family, it's very different. It doesn't skew 1-to-1. So if you're saying you're a single person and you're like, hey, I only need $500 a week to really live. If you have kids or a spouse, it actually doesn't go, hey, another $500. It actually skews differently. So there are expenses, there's waste, there's all kinds of things. Time, your time is valuable. And I never think that people really understand the value of their time. I know a lot of people give their time away freely, and that's also a problem in the work environment. That this huge pivot caused a lot of people who weren't giving their time to offer time of others, to give away that resource because they felt, hey, this client needs it, this friend needs it, I have a relationship with them, I need you to do this all weekend, to detach. And that remote aspect of working, always on the clock, losing that commute break, that commute decompress or preparation for work, really got to people, where you're walking downstairs and you're checking your email, almost tripping on yourself, and they're wondering why you didn't read your email at 7 in the morning. And that was a constant fear of like, man, I should have read those emails. Man, why aren't I checking my email at 6 p.m. And then in the ability to detach and the ability to be a human being. And I think in the U.S. we have a problem with that, of when you stop being on the job. And there are very few work environments that have a forward progression now. We saw this in the I think in the early 2000s with the first .com bubble, where in California there's a very similar situation that we're having right now, where people were either taking jobs that were super high paying, or they wouldn't take the job. So you had this an interesting dynamic over there where they couldn't find workers. And I remember going out there because we had been bought by a company that was based out in Sunnyvale, California. So I used to go out there a few times a month, and talking to the people there, and the hires they were getting, they weren't even qualified for some of the income that we were giving them. And then you would go in places and people were always short-staffed. They couldn't get the entry level because people wanted the higher income, or they weren't going to deal with the stress. And the in-between is where the stress is. That's where the lift is. That's where the stress is. The in-between is always where the most work is happening. So that's a big deal. That's a very big deal. I think I got laundry roll in here. Yeah, my machine's on. So real life, this is how it is. You got to do laundry during the day. So I've got my water draining out of the machine. So we might hear a beep at some point. If we do, I'm going to stop and I'm going to come back. Just do a quick edit. Thank you about that. Thank you for understanding. This is when your life changes and you're working from home. You have these noise and things that weren't acceptable before, but you're hearing, people, kids reacting, dogs reacting, neighbors reacting, trucks going by. It's not the weird siren in an office that you're 15 feet, 15 stories up, but here it could be right outside your house, and nothing's isolated, and you get a phone call, and that was spam. Yes, tons of spam. Everybody knows you're home. Everybody knows you're connected to these phones, and that's a problem too. And that's the stress level. That's where we want to detach. And I think it's less of a work resignation. It's less of I don't want to work anymore, which a lot of people see that. It's like, hell, even, I know a lot of older people. I'm an old guy, but I know a lot of older people than me. And, they have this idea that people just don't want to work anymore. No, they just don't want that stress level. That stress level was never there. You were able to leave your job when you were younger. When my father was working, my mother was working, they came home, they left their job. That was it. They left their job. Until recently, I used to leave my job. I used to leave and come home and, like I said, do about a 45-minute commute, and I would decompress. I found the most relaxing commute that I could do. I live on Staten Island, and I used to take the ferry home and take a short train ride and walk from the train station near my house, and I would relax. That was my decompression. That was my detachment. That was my moment to think about things other than work. And once you're working remote, it's overwhelming. Once you're working where people need you, have access to you, where you're getting bullshit phone calls, you're getting work phone calls, you're getting somebody's attitude for no reason, because they don't understand it, because they can't comprehend things failing on their end. They can't comprehend that they failed in some way because they've got that pressure too. People are leaving. And like I said, on the other side is, is the company even valuing you for that? Are they respecting the fact that you can bring a level of work, a level of quality, a level of education, of enlightenment to a situation, and people don't see it because it's a fail point, and everyone's frantic not to be marked with that fail point. Everyone's frantic not to be associated with that. We had a what do we have? We had a client who got a new CEO, and a lot of this stuff is mismanagement from CEOs too. I mean, I think it's always a leadership problem when that kind of mentality comes in, because if they don't value the people under them and give them a lot of pressure or give them unrealistic demands, not understanding what's going on, that trickles down. Forget about trickle down economics. Trickle down pain in the ass is constant. It's constant. So a couple of years ago, before COVID, new CEO gets hired, gets pulled into a company, they got bought out, yada yada yada. They do all that stuff, and usually new CEOs, first thing they do is start cutting people, and that's a cost saving measure. You cut 10% of your population. I think it's that Jack Welch thing. Cut 10%, and you're always profitable because people try harder and there's more scared. So that's what this guy did. He started laying off people like crazy, and they did these webcasts. Now the CEO before him liked very, very complicated webcasts. He loved cameras. He loved lights. So we used to go there with a full rig. I thought it was over the top, and we tried to push them to a more cost efficient method, but that's what the guy liked. And we did it. We did it every time. And it was a nice big budget thing for him. We didn't make a lot of profit because we were actually hiring more people and farming things out because there's such a big production. That's how productions are. You don't have everything in house. You have one thing, maybe one component, maybe two, but you're pulling in so many resources from other things to make it this big, big production. And a new CEO comes in and he says, cut it by, 3/4. It's got to be a lot less. The whole thing, worldwide. This was a global meeting, and we were able to do it. I went in there, I gave them a plan, I gave them some ownership, and I think that's a big problem with a lot of companies. They don't want to give the client ownership of what they need to own. I don't need to own anything that's in your realm. I don't need to own anything past that front door, because I just enter the front door with what I bring, and that's it. And we were able to do it successfully for them. And when I broke it down, even for my management, looking at my teams, I said, actually, we're making about the same amount of profit, because what we were able to bring to the table was exactly what we owned. And we let the client own what they could in their realm. We simplified it. We made it more of a technology leap, which we were all going towards anyway before this. I mean, I saw remote working coming into play years ago, because addresses and brick and mortar are not how you value a company anymore. Sorry, I hit the mic there. It's really speculation. Value of your company is speculation. Value of your company is what you think it will be worth in some time, if they can pivot, and the perceived value of what it is, the status. Buildings, offices, that's all accessories. It's just a nice watch. That's all it is. It's a nice watch, nice suit, and that shows how fancy you are, of what you can. I have my own thoughts about wealth and what people perceive wealth as. I think the modern concept of wealth is not hoarding or acquiring wealth. It's actually what is disposable to you. That's wealth. It's how much you can spend on nonsense that you don't know the money about it, and you just toss it away. It doesn't matter. It just never matters. So I think that's a different conversation. But I think that is where we were going anyway, and we were able to make this great pivot before COVID, and the client stayed. The clients stayed. They loved it. We got big hurrahs. They came up to us. They said your money will not be as great, but we will be sticking around, and that's a win. And that for me was momentum to keep moving in that direction. And when that's how I work with my my staff, people who are under me, they're under my leadership. And so I knew this was sort of coming. COVID just pushed us in the right direction. It was into the inevitable. And these are signs that people refuse to see. America is a state that doesn't like change. They are the old retired guy on the lawn saying, why don't I remember with white picket fences when he probably, as a kid, would do a slingshots those picket fences. So that's all they want. And I think America has that nostalgic element to it. Maybe because we don't have a unified history, an ethnic unified history. So it's a thought to think about. But people are trying to push that down everybody's throat that we have some sort of unified history, but we don't. It's a sudden starts, it's lurches. There's different elements. I mean, Florida was a Spanish colony till just before the Civil War, I think. You have the Louisiana Purchase. You have French migration. You have all kinds of migration. You have Italian migration spread out to places that we never really thought about. So no one has that common element. So back to the Great Resignation. I do go off on tangents. So we're going to the resignation here, and I think that's a big part of it too. Is that the value there was supposed to give back to people during this pivot, during this big rush, during this thank you. Didn't happen. Didn't happen in a lot of places. I think in a lot of places, people were just burnt out. People were tired, and it's the mid-management stuff. These are the people that they probably put a lot of years on the job, and they don't know where they're going because the higher ups aren't moving. That's also a problem. Once people have fear, the higher ups never move, and they have like a little bit of a circle of where they get hired in other companies. So they always have a friend in the network that will get them another job because they're awesome at what they do, or they're really smart is what I get usually with these team leaders, and they don't know, they don't know a lot sometimes. I'm not saying they're not smart, but it's for a very specific skill set like webcasting or streaming or meeting or development or technology. A lot of people know some things, but they know the magic of it, but they don't know the mechanics of it. They know that it looks great when it happens right, until it happens wrong, and then don't bother talking to them. And a lot of people felt that pressure. So I think that's what's happening with the Great Resignation. And do we really need to live like that? I mean, I'm higher up. I don't know where I'm going to retire. I don't know if I'll retire in this country. I don't know if I have to. I don't know if I should. It doesn't really matter to me. You can get anything you want anywhere in the world now. And that's actually even a different thing. I was thinking about people are looking at this country, how it's unable to support itself, in these ebbs and flows. And another headline I was reading about, I live on Staten Island, about all the traffic and how people are coming back into offices. And a lot of people aren't taking mass transit anymore because they're scared of COVID. So cars are coming back in a big, big way. So you have all these delivery trucks, you have all these cars, and people I don't care about the HOV. They just want to be alone and they don't want to get sick, and that's it. And then you have this massive delivery network. So for me, the U.S. is probably not wired right, delivery-wise. This all is kind of related because you're looking at the value of workers, the value of what we're doing, and are we taking leaps forward when it makes sense? Are we looking at the signs of when things make sense? And I don't think we have been. I take a look at how we build out delivery structure. I was just looking even yesterday about maps of freight lines in the U.S. A lot of decommission, and they only work one day a week. Freight lines aren't used as extensively as they probably should be. Train freight lines. We've relied on truck drivers. That's been the biggest growth. There's these shipping centers that are being built by Amazon, by Walmart, by all these big companies in every state, and that's their brick and mortar. They're subcontracting them out. They do a subcontract to get people out of state shipped there. I read a great article in the magazine, in Wednesday's magazine, I don't know if The Economist or the Atlantic, about a town in the middle of the country that became a shipping center hub, and they are in turmoil. They don't know what to do because they build these giant shipping centers. Trucks are rolling in and out of side streets. They're demolishing highways. They're actually not paying tax as a business. They're bringing in payroll tax. So payroll tax is essentially your income tax that gets paid to the town. So that's what they're paying. So the workers are subsidizing any tax revenue there. So they're employing the people who live there, and people might want to move there. because of the employment, and that's what they're hoping the revenue comes in, and the company will not pay tax really on that. So they're not paying their fair share to accommodate to have access to a population, which is the weirdest thing in the world for me. That usually, in our terms, once you want access to services or things that make your life better or profitable, you have to pay an entry fee. I mean, if you really, I mean, just stick with me on this one, because I was thinking about the highway thing, and a local paper they were saying, how do we mitigate the traffic? And one guy, they had these silly ideas, not silly, but just ideas of can we make shoulders running lanes? Oh, there's the laundry. So, be right back. I'm back. There you go. Sorry about that. Again, working remote. So where was I? So I was talking about the highways, and how Staten Island's looking at this, big surge on the limited expressways we have and the limited roads we have, and they just packed all the time with cars. So there's cars, there's weird ways they're cut, and they're saying, hey, let's just use the shoulders all the time, get rid of HOV or make it, a little different. I actually have a different idea. Now we are worried about people who pay registration in the counties. We pay for our registration in the state. We pay for inspections in the state. These are all for the highways. We pay gasoline tax. That's for us. We buy our local gas here. A lot of these people don't buy the local gas here. It's us who are buying the local gas. We pay for a lot of things to keep things moving. We pay very high tolls. So we're paying for all this stuff to keep the roads open and to maintain them. That's what we're paying. The people who are benefiting this the most are actually truck drivers and commercial delivery services that are leveraging the roads and probably fueling somewhere else, fueling in bulk at a shipping center, or getting some sort of discount. So they're constantly winning to supposedly keep the costs down. Now that doesn't make sense to me. If you build a house in an area on a map, road on a map, if you build a new house and there's no road there, a city or a municipality will make you build that road. You have to build that road. You have to build the gas lines to get service, even though that road, that house, is guaranteeing revenue for the county for, say, 100 years, say 50 years. It's guaranteeing revenue for services. It's guaranteeing taxes. It's guaranteeing utilities. It's guaranteeing everything that needs to happen to make the city function. Yet, the owner is obligated, the free citizen is obligated to build that road, to build that line that connects. You are responsible for all of that. If you were a big company coming there, you would be responsible for none of it. The county would build a road. They would raise the taxes on everybody to build the road. They would raise the taxes on everybody to compensate or for the build of the utilities. That's what they would do. They would green light things that you would never be allowed to do. They would work around things. They would change code. I know I was looking at in Brooklyn, where I grew up in Brooklyn, actually, right across the river over here. And there's like a 25-story building being built on the coast over there in one of the areas that has all 3-story houses or 4-story buildings, and is blocking the entire ocean view. They were allowed to change the code. If I wanted to build that house, I could never do that house. I could never build something as tall as I wanted. Because I'm a single person. I'm not an entity, a company that supposedly is bringing more revenue. But the only revenue that property is bringing is sales tax for transfer taxes for the properties. So they're looking at something, and they should be paying a lot more. They should be doing a lot more. They should be opening more parks. Some places in New York City require that when you build a lot of structures, you actually have to build a school. I know one neighborhood in Long Island City had to do that. They put up all these buildings, and they told them, hey, you got to build a school. You got to build a school for all the kids that are going to live here, because we can't support it. That makes sense to me. That's how things should be. And I think the highways are something that have to be managed in that same way. That if you're going to build a shipping center, and we know it's going to hit at least 50 miles out in every direction, then maybe Amazon or whomever, not the post office, I don't want to get into that, that's a different conversation, but the Amazon, the people making real profit, and I know the post office makes profit, but these are companies that's aggressively their pursuit, is to make profit. They need to maintain the roads. They can build, and I say just do a whole commercial road, only trucks that can drive on that road, and maybe then we can have people buy into it. Other people who want to have commercial vehicles can buy into it. Otherwise, you got to deal with that. You got to deal only with the right lane. You have to deal with other things. But and even at that point, that's when you can go into self-driving vehicles. Because that becomes a new rail system. That once you have self-driving vehicles in those dedicated lanes that are built for that, it will be a different experience. It would be an entirely different experience. They could have different off ramps. They could have everything different. It doesn't matter where they get out. Most of the trucks that come through Staten Island don't stop in Staten Island. They literally stop in Manhattan. And even at the rezoning, that's what's jammed it up too. Because parts of Brooklyn, or even New York City as an example here, I'm sure a lot of cities are feeling this as well. Because a lot of the industrial areas, because the structure of the buildings and the lots are bigger, those are the ones getting built out. And the industrial areas back in the day were closer to things because you didn't want to travel a lot. That's a waste of time, waste of money. So you have parts like Gowanus and Brooklyn's got built out, Long Island City got built out, and a lot of those warehouses moved to the outskirts of New York City. So now the travel time is insane because those trucks are 15 miles outside of the center of where they need to be, and they're all trying to get into that one road to back where they were and to get out because now that has become prime living space. So they've changed zoning to make it living space where areas were all warehouses just for developers. And it wasn't really to help out the area. You've eliminated parking, you've eliminated a lot of things that actually existed there because it was retail zone. So now these trucks are all over the place. And on Staten Island, they're really just coming from Jersey, from some port or delivery out in Pennsylvania or wherever the hell it is, Chicago, and they're driving through to other big places. They don't really stop here, especially on the highway. They don't stop here. So imagine having a great lane that just goes boom right out. It's different than HOV. It's a commerce lane. It's a business lane. It's maintained by them. It could be self-driving vehicles, self-driving trucks. You never have to worry about somebody in a Camry pulling up in front of them. That's the vehicles that can only go in there. And it could be a toll charge. It could be managed. It could be a ton of things because we can differentiate what it is rather than trying to jam them on the same road. And hell, if it's really worth it for them, let them all get together and build a fucking tunnel. Build a bridge if they want to. That's commerce only. It's great. It can only be one lane. It doesn't have to be two lanes. It can be one lane in the shoulder. Because if they're auto driving or they're driving by themselves and it's lined in and it's clocked, I mean, it could just be great. And then you have an infrastructure too on that people are working. And it's a different kind of road build as well. The kind of road that needs to be built for trucks, not the kind of road that needs to be built for personal vehicles. The expense is different. It scales differently. The resurfacing is different. The timetable is different. Everything is different with that. So I think it's an interesting idea for me as a solution. Not necessarily a big idea, but definitely an interesting idea. I thought. So that's one of my ideas. And it's sort of related to the Great Resignation because we have all these stress points of how things are changing, and we're not looking at the changes that need to happen. I think people need to value their employees. There is actually it is sort of related because now there's a shortage of truck drivers. So that's actually where the idea came from before. I was thinking about it yesterday. There is a shortage of truck drivers. And people were saying, well, we need more truck drivers. We can't deliver enough for what people want. So people went remote. They got used to everything being delivered. I'm an Amazon guy. I get everything delivered. And now you want it instant. I don't care, honestly. I'll wait 3 days for something. It's nice that it comes in a day. I would love to have scheduled delivery days. Like I get delivered Wednesday, Monday and Thursday. I'd be fine with that. At least I know I'd be home and nothing would get robbed. Getting something delivered every day gives me more chance to lose something. I'd rather have it in just one spot. So, and that's what I was thinking about with the drivers. That people are thinking about, hey, these drivers, they're not around. We need more drivers. We need more drivers. Were we paying them enough? The unions are disseminated. The Teamsters, they ran the country in the 60s. I don't know if they're viable anymore. We only have a small percentage of the population that's unionized. And I know there's corruption and everything. There's corruption in everything. But there's corruption in unions, and people see a lot of that. But there's corruption everywhere. Their contracts are corruption. We live in a monopolistic country. People don't think so, but there's always the joy of being the monopoly and pushing people out. And we allow that to happen constantly. The healthy competition is not how it sort of really works here. You have the wood thing that happened last year, where people were dying for more wood, and you couldn't find enough wood in Home Depots and Lowe's, and things skyrocketed. And the way capitalism works, and this is where it fails a lot of times for me, at least in my mind, is that there's supply and demand. Greater demand, the higher the price. That's fine, but at some point, the supply does increase because the demand is high. If there's a cap on on supply, that demand will always remain high. Now that's a false thing. That's not the way actually it should. That's not the natural order of things. The way it should work, or what we propose in this country happens, is that more businesses open up. We ramp it up. We get more workers. We do more supply, and then the price levels off. And that just doesn't happen anymore. Now we have these artificial uh, supply shortages. This is something that happened in the Eastern Bloc countries all the time. They would do artificial shortages to prop up prices to get more money from people and, of course, hyperinflation. That's my biggest fear. But OPEC is doing that right now. They're deciding to pump less oil out of the ground, and they're investing in other things. You get Dubai as a tourist destination. Saudi Arabia is going for tourism if it can. They've been pushing who goes to Mecca a lot more. It's not numbers that it used to be, much smaller. They're allowing more people. It's more control. It's become like a Disneyland. Hotels are all over the place. They're knocking down historic homes. In religion, even though they said they're against icons, they're like literally knocking down homes that are over 1,000 years old, which are associated to their religion for hotels, and they're deciding to drill for less oil because they know the electric car is coming. They're actually watching what's happening, so they know the electric car is coming. They know that's leaving, that oil leaving, that oil leaving them. And they're getting ready for their next step of how to keep getting revenue. And we're still stuck in not wanting to change. I mean, I think we have to think about everything in a dynamic way. Highways need to be separated. There's too much trucks. If you drive on 78 or 80 coming down, there are way too many trucks. When you say there's a shortage of drivers, I can't fathom that. How many more drivers could they have? Because I can't. There are times when I'm on that highway at night, I try not to drive at night because I'll be the only car. I'll be the only car surrounded by over a dozen trucks, and that's a frightening thing. And they all move at their pace, and that's it. And you got to get out of the way. They don't care. And things, you got to watch those changes. I think we have to look at that. Even the post office, we have to look. Do I need Saturday delivery? Probably not. Or maybe I don't need Monday delivery. Maybe residential is only 3-4 times a week. You don't get it on the weekend. Businesses don't get it on the weekend. Why do I need delivery on the weekend? I check my mail when I come home, and that's it. Back in the day, people would have a box at the post office. Maybe I just go to the post office and get it. Maybe that's more lines, but you could do schedules. You get your mails. Get rid of trash mail. Can't deal with it. I just can't deal with it. I get tons of it. I throw it out constantly. I still throw it out. Yeah, I would have thought that would have vanished by now, but no. We get spam. We get spam through mail too. It's still insane. It's insane how many times I get asked to change my cable every month. Every month. So maybe that's how they keep their costs high and their expenses high. But it's just crazy to me. It's just nuts. So yeah, so I mean that's I guess they are related if you think about it. Shortage of drivers, how the infrastructure is, the Great Resignation. People don't want to be beaten down anymore. They do want to have value. They want to be shown that they have value. They want to be shown that they're respected. And I don't know if that dialogue exists. And even though truck drivers get paid well, from what I've always heard, there wouldn't be a shortage then. Maybe they're not treated well for that. I don't know. I was reading some article where some drivers, when they pick up a load, even though they're waiting hours for the load, don't get paid until they pick up the load. So they're waiting hours in a line. Again, this is how we're treating people and what the expectation is of them, that they need to wait to make their money. They will get money, but they got to wait. They got to make their bones. But at some point, you realize you're always making bones, and you're not moving forward. So, yeah, I think that's it for this one today. I don't know how everybody feels about that. I'm gonna be doing a commentary on some entertainment actually. So that part of this this podcast that I'm doing, just so everyone's aware, is that I'm gonna be talking about things like this, talking about things that spark ideas, but also talking about entertainment and things that also move me in a different way. Books, articles, the environment, everything I want to talk about, ethnicity, perceptions, and I think they're really, really interesting. And I think we need to have more of a dialogue than a monologue, even though this is a monologue. But I'm hoping to get more guests, and that's where I like to do, and it is about comparing. So thank you for joining me today. I hope you come back soon. Bye.